Lil Durk was out here acting like a mafia boss, making the feds pull out all the stops with tactics usually reserved for taking down mafia families. Authorities have Durk on tape confessing the murders, and it's not just the murder of Quando Rondo's cousin. He's also linked to having his brother's killer taken out and even ordering the death of an informant's baby mama. Durk was out here taking his crew on private planes. Oh, Snitch throws Lil Durk under the bus. Lil Durk has definitely made it known in his past interviews that he really can't stand snitches. It's wild to think that Durk could end up in cuffs just because one of his guys decided to snitch on him. So there's this guy, AF Jam, right? He's part of the crew and apparently played a pretty important role in the whole investigation that led to Lil Durk getting taken down. So it looks like this guy got out of prison in 2022 after doing 12 years for attempted murder. So it turns out he was an informant who had been working with the authorities for quite a while. You won't believe this, but he actually wore a wire while hanging out with Lil Durk and the OTF crew. That gave the feds some serious intel, a total shocker that caught everyone off guard, including Durkio himself. So the indictment says the Jam's recordings and the info he shared played a big role in connecting Durk to that notorious murder for hire scheme that nearly got Quando Rondo. If you know about OTF Jam's connection with Durk, then you'll be pretty surprised by his role in turning on the ITF boss. Those secret recordings that are at the heart of the case against Durk are really starting to seem like one of the biggest betrayals in hip-hop history. Jam, who has been with OTF for a long time, was seen as a brother by Lil Durk. While Jam was serving his 12-year sentence for attempted murder, Durk was right there by his side, helping out financially and making sure Jam had everything he needed. They took care of legal fees, bought a house and a car, and even gave him over $50,000 in cash as a gift. So it looks like Durk might have had a role in the death of his baby mama. So it turns out that Lil Durk discovered Jam had been wearing a wire the whole time. Durk was set on getting his revenge, but he realized that taking out an FBI informant could land him in hot water with the feds. So he decided to go after his child's mother, Octavia Redmond, instead. It was just another day in the West Pullman neighborhood of Chicago when the life of a cherished postal worker, Octavia Redmond, came to a heartbreaking end. So on July 19, 2024, around noon, Octavia was just hanging out in front of a house in Chicago, getting ready to deliver some mail when a stolen SUV rolled up close by. A 15-year-old suspect was behind the wheel of the vehicle, which turned out to be the getaway car. The suspect got out of the CVA and walked over to Octavia, looking pretty menacing. Out of nowhere, he fired at her several times from just a few feet away, leaving her seriously hurt on the ground. The suspect took off from the scene in the stolen SUV. The 48-year-old woman was rushed to Christ Hospital in critical condition. But unfortunately, right after the shooting happened, the Chicago Police Department jumped into action, starting a thorough investigation to find the suspect. The U.S. Postal Inspection Service got in on the action too, putting up a hefty reward for any info that could help catch and convict the people behind this. They hopped on Twitter to share that they're offering a $250,000 reward for any info that helps catch and convict the person behind the homicide. As the investigation progressed, authorities tapped into footage from both police and private cameras to follow the suspect's movements leading up to and following the shooting. They found the stolen SUV, and thanks to an anonymous tip, they got some key info that led them to the suspect. Months went by while investigators put in a lot of effort to catch the person responsible. They finally made a breakthrough when they found the suspect in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, and took him into custody on a murder warrant. Even though Durk was super loyal to his buddy, Jam made the choice to turn into what the Chicago rapper despises the most, a rat. But having the mother of his baby killed didn't fix anything. The harm was already done. So what did DF Jam tell the cops that could land Durk with the death penalty? So OTM's talk with the cops kicked off with the sad happenings from November 6, 2020. So that night, King Von, who was Durk's best friend, ended up getting killed outside an Atlanta nightclub. So there was this fight that kicked off between Von and Quando Rondo. Things got really out of hand when someone from Rondo's crew supposedly pulled out a gun and shot Von several times, which sadly led to his death. So there's this CCTV footage where Von walks up to Quando Rondo and just punches him, knocking him to the ground. Von's crew jumped in and began to really lay into Quando while he struggled to escape his assailants. During the chaos, one of Q's friends, later known as Lil Tim, popped up from behind their car, gun in hand, and started firing as everyone took off running. Von got shot in the torso, and unfortunately, he later passed away from his injuries while in surgery at the hospital. Lil Durk's friend's death hit him hard, and it also sparked even more tension between him and Quando Rondo. There were whispers going around that Durk had put a bounty on Rondo, which really got people talking and stirred up some anxiety in the industry. Court documents revealed that UTF Jam informed the police that following Von's death, Durk communicated in coded language to AAF members, indicating he would offer a bounty for anyone involved in the killing of Quando Rondo. Durk's cousin, DeAndre Wilson, mentioned to the OTF members that anyone involved in the murder would get some pretty sweet music opportunities with OTF, which is a music label too. Back in August 2022, it seems that Lil Durk's crew found out Quando Rondo was hanging out at a hotel in Los Angeles, and they started making plans to M. Kim. So Durk's crew, DeAndre Wilson, Keith Jones, David Lindsay, and Asa Houston made their way from Chicago to San Diego and then hit the road to Los Angeles, supposedly using cash that Durk gave them. The group was set on completing their mission carefully and quietly, making sure to steer clear of any direct connections to Durk by sticking to his supposed advice about not booking flights under names tied to him. The feds shared that they got some info from Durk's iCloud, where he told them not to book anything under his name. Even with the warning, they went ahead and booked the flights using a credit card connected to Lil Durk and OTF. When they arrived, the ATB OTF members caught up with Keon Grant, a key associate who had just flown in to Los Angeles on a private jet. Grant was key in making everything happen. He arranged hotel stays for the group, bought ski masks, and got 2 fancy sedans for the ambush. Court records show that Grant gave firearms to Jones, Lindsay, and another person whose identity isn't known, including one that had been modified into a machine gun, which really ramped up the risk of violence. As the day went on, the group reportedly started following Quando Rondo and his buddy Robinson while they cruised around Los Angeles in a Cadillac Escalade. They visited a bunch of places like a marijuana dispensary and a clothing store in West Hollywood. The air was thick with tension as the suspects trailed their targets, just biding their time for the perfect moment to make their move. The highlight of the day happened at a petrol station right across from the Beverly Center, which is always buzzing in the heart of Los Angeles. So it seems Asa Houston parked his car right behind the station, kind of setting things up for the ambush. So Quando Rondo and Robinson pulled into a petrol station, and that's when Jones, Lindsay, and another guy hopped out of their car, all geared up and looking to put their plan into action. The suspects started shooting, letting loose a barrage of bullets aimed at Rondo. Unfortunately, LPAB Quez's cousin was outside the Escalade when he was caught in the gunfire and lost his life, while Rondo somehow managed to get away without a scratch. It was a chaotic scene, with people rushing to find safety while the suspects made their escape. Later on, the suspects met up again at an In-N-Out burger joint where they supposedly talked about payment with Keon Grant. So the group headed back to Chicago, catching a flight from San Diego, while the authorities started to put together the details of that bold attack. I've been hearing around that these 2 murders might not be the only ones Durk has had a hand in. Durk's been on a wild path lately, from dealing with his brother's killer to confronting an ope who disrespected Von's mural. Durk has been involved in some serious stuff, including the first murder for hire scheme he got caught in, which was about his brother's murder. The story kicks off with the passing of Lil Durk's brother, Durk, on June 7th, 2021. It was a Sunday morning outside a strip club in South Suburban Harvey when shots rang out and D got hit in the head. They declared him dead right there at the scene. I heard that a guy named Stefan Ma was linked to Durk's death, so Lil Durk decided to put a bounty on him. On January 7th, 2022, May was shot at the Youth Peace Center of Roseland, which is at 420 West 111th Street in Chicago. For long, 2 guys, Anthony Montgomery Wilson and Preston Powell, found themselves indicted for murder for hire. The events that led to MA's murder were carefully thought out. Montgomery Wilson and Powell, along with some other people we don't know yet, are said to have plotted to carry out a hit on May for cash. The story included a cell phone and a 2014 Chrysler 300, which prosecutors considered tools of interstate commerce. Asma was leaving the Youth Peace Center. Some gunman got out of a vehicle and started shooting, which sadly left him fatally injured. A security guard got hurt in the attack, but thankfully he survived. The indictment, which was kept under wraps for a while, has now been made public, showing just how serious the accusations are against the 2 men. Montgomery Wilson and Powell face charges for conspiring to use an interstate facility to carry out a murder for hire. Montgomery Wilson also dealt with a murder for hire charge and a gun charge. As the legal proceedings played out, Montgomery Wilson ended up in custody, dealing with all the serious charges coming his way. At his arraignment, Montgomery Wilson said he wasn't guilty, which could lead to a long and heated trial ahead. his defense team is likely going to question the evidence that the prosecution has brought forward, including some photos from the US. The attorney's office is reportedly showing him going after the victim with a firearm. So, on another note, Preston Powell is still on the run and law enforcement is really on the lookout for him. One of the most talked about murders that Durk is said to have funded is the case of FBG Duck. So when Duck's killers got arrested in 2021, it came out that Vaughn had actually put a $100 bounty on him. So it looks like there was a rat in our block who was working with the feds. They spilt the beans about the person who paid for the hit and how the killers got rewarded with these custom-made blockchains. I came across a video on YouTube where King Von is seen giving custom-made chains to Oblock members. However, some sources from Chicago are saying that it was actually Durk who ordered the hit on Duck and paid the people involved. So it looks like Mua PC Murder didn't get arrested in Oblock after all. So everyone's arrest video is dropping from that Duck case, right? But we still haven't seen Muap or C Murder's footage yet. Have you seen Muap or C Murder go to jail on camera yet? Since everyone else connected to that case has their arrest footage on camera. So it looks like they got arrested at a private hangar, which is pretty wild since no typical Block gang member would be able to afford to charter a private plane. Those guys got picked up at the airport in a... It's pretty intriguing that when they got arrested, Vaughn was already gone. That kind of cash to fly out Muo and C Murder on a private jet, it points right to Lil Durk. So there's a situation where Durk is thought to have had a hand in the death of one of Duck's close friends, FBG Cash. It all started when Cash took a photo next to Vaughn's mural, flipping the bird right after King Von was killed. That didn't sit well with Vaughn's crew, especially with his best buddy, Lil Durk. Not exactly a respectful move. So a few weeks before that tragic incident that took his life, FBG Cash found himself in a shooting. He even thought the woman he was with might have set him up. Thankfully, he only got grazed on the arm by a bullet and managed to live to share his story. So that morning, Cash had just wrapped up at the studio and headed over to the woman's place around 4:20 when suddenly her phone started ringing off the hook. Cash mentioned it was the girl's boyfriend. She then let Cash know that her boyfriend had the keys to the house, which meant he could show up anytime. So they figured it was best to leave. They hopped into her car and took off with Cash riding shotgun. The rapper did something that ended up saving his life that night. He leaned back in his seat and lay down while using his phone. On their way home, they hit a red light and the car pulled up behind them. Cash mentioned that the woman said it was a cop. He took a quick look but couldn't see well, so he went back to his phone. Out of nowhere, the back windscreen shattered from a barrage of bullets. Thankfully, he wasn't in the line of fire right away. The woman took off before anything worse can. Cash's friends were cautioning him about hanging out with this woman since she was an Instagram model, and they had only been out a few times before things went south. They thought she might have had some kind of agenda with the rapper. So it's pretty clear that Durk has been linked to a few murder-for-hire schemes, but he's not alone in this. There are quite a few other rappers who've faced similar charges, including his close friend in the industry, King Von. So when we talk about rappers who've faced some serious legal trouble, Young Thug definitely comes to mind. Back in May 2022, Fulton County District Attorney Fonnie Willis dropped a pretty shocking 56-count indictment against him and 27 others, claiming they were part of a violent street gang in Atlanta. They said ISL wasn't just a record label, but a whole criminal operation linked to the Bloods gang. The indictment laid out a whole decade of chaos focused around Cleveland Avenue in Atlanta. Prosecutors have claimed that members of ISL were involved in a variety of criminal activities like murder, assault, robbery, theft, illegal gun possession, and drug sales. The indictment pointed to Young Thug as the main leader of the group. One of the most surprising allegations was related to the 2015 murder of Donovan Thomas Jr., also known as Big Nut, who was a rival gang member. According to prosecutors, Young Thug rented the car that was used in the murder while 5 other ISL members faced direct charges for the killing. As the trial moves along, everyone in the rap scene is waiting to see if Big Nut's murder will be linked to Thug. But Thug isn't the only one with connections to Durk who's had issues. It looks like Young Ace has had his share too. Ace was tight with both Lil Durk and Quando Rondo before things got heated, and now it seems he might have been involved in planning and funding the murder of his biggest rival, Fulio. Fulio's mom claims her son's death was a hit job. Do you think it was a paid? Ace appeared to suggest that it was a paid hit during a chat on a YouTube show when he was asked about his most recent investment. While Lil Durk was out there giving his crew cash and sweet music contracts for their work, another rapper, Chef G from New York, found himself in a bit of hot water too. He was said to treat his friends to fancy dinners. Chef G's crew had spread from Brooklyn all the way to Manhattan and even into New Jersey. and they were accused of stirring up quite a bit of trouble that left the community on edge. Brooklyn's district attorney, Eric Gonzalez, shared that the rapper had used his earnings to support more gang activity, pushing members to get involved in violent crimes.